We were going to show a little bit of a, no, stay there, because I'm just saying we were going to show a little video of Rhonda, but instead I'm going to ask you, Rhonda, to move your the chair and here closer to me. Okay. Come closer to me, darling.
Draw up a chair.
And draw up a chair here. And we're going to have a girls' talk here, a women's talk.
Exactly.
So, Rhonda, here you are, settle in. Me too. I've got to get onto this chair a little bit. And I also need to get my notes. Okay. Because we wanted to, and now I've got cramps. So we want to have a little bit of a conversation about activism as an ethical and civic practice. So I thought that we would just sort of break up our conversation into those four parts. And we'll talk a little bit about activism, then it's something about the ethical place that you come from, and then what the civics and the big thing is, and then close in what practice means to you too. And these are the sort of the four little categories, as it were. So if you can relate to them in any way, bear in mind, because we're going to open up for a conversation, and then we'll come back to those subjects. So you're relaxed, you're here, you have a lovely daughter. And thank you so much for all that you've done. I've known you, I guess, for about 10 years now. Do I have to, are you hearing me on? You know what, Mike, would you give me the handheld? Thank you. So it could be something like 10, maybe 12 years that we've known it. I've been composting, my little business started 15 years ago, so that's one milestone, as it were. And so just give us a thought about what activism means to you. How does this, in the activism, what is it? Where does that land with you?
Well, that's a big topic. I mean,
it is actually, but it's just the notion of the word.
I feel like it always starts with the personal, you know? It's something that's going on that you feel like needs to be changed. And I remember going to my daughter's middle school, and they gave me, she had a subway card, and she only got half fare. And I said, that's not fair. She needs the full fare to get there, and it's still dangerous to walk across 4th Avenue. And she said, just change your address, move your address to something else. And I said, no, but other people have this problem too. We've got to change it. This has got to be different. So,
so there was a jump right into action. Right. I just want to say another thing about that Rhonda and I have in common is that we were actors. We were actresses at one point, so we have that other little act in common. I was thinking about activism in terms of the term that you like for yourself, because I don't particularly think of myself as an activist. I sort of like to think of myself as an organizer. And so but organizing is much more of a thing that we, there's much more sort of control, as it were, in being an organizer and putting there. Activism, as you say, it's more comes out of the center of you. So, and so that's where we come as there is this the activism, and then where do we land in the whole world of ethics? And you have so many little sparks of things that you could have gotten active in, and in fact you did get active in. So I thought we would just settle in to the PTA story, to the genesis of your involvement with the PTA.
Yeah, my daughter went to an elementary school that had a very active PTA, and they were active in raising money. And then this school construction project came in, and everybody was up in arms about it. This is the health of our kids and the air quality and all of that, and I was too. Then I got involved. When they were raising money, I said, "Oh, they don't need me. They can do that on their own." But then when I just couldn't stop, because I knew that it wasn't just her in this setting. It was everybody who worked there and who went to school there. And so I helped push and organize. And you talked about not liking the term activist. And when we were discussing that, I feel like it can be also like a pollinator, where you're going from this flower to that flower and bringing all the flowers together to really make something beautiful happen that is in the interest of people, of the people.
More than us,
yeah.
More than just us.
Right, more than just, fixing it for me or for my family or for my daughter, but fixing it for our community, for other people who wouldn't necessarily know to speak up about it, or would be too nervous to speak up about it or don't have time to speak up about it. And so that sort of became something that it's like stepping in quicksand when you realize, oh no, there's another thing that I realize can be changed. Now I'm in it. So, yeah.
And you were in it with the PTA,
Yes,
weren't you?
yes, yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about the drama of the PTA. You were bashful about talking about your PTA, but tell us the truth about the PTA.
Do you want me to tell the story about the construction?
Yes, you were going to tell a story about the construction, but and all of the people that are involved in
Right,
this.
right. So it was a group of parents who didn't not feel entitled to participate in the world, and so
because they were
one of the $1 million PTAs in the city,
There we go.
and we're not we're familiar with that here in Brownstone, Brooklyn. Many of those PTAs are such, and so then a lot of people came. They had knowledge of construction, and they understood what could be the problem, and wanted to be the checks and balances. But there were all these rules around construction and who could be in the site when it was under construction, and who could be there and who would be considered trespassing. But quickly to realize I realized that it was just about getting in there and saying, there were some parents who came in and said, I'm going to chain myself to the fence until they do what we need them to do. And I said, okay, we need to leave the principal's office right now and have this conversation aside, because you will be a very necessary part of this, but you can't jeopardize her job. She's going to retire soon. So we realized that we were working from the inside, where we had the meetings with the School Construction Authority, and but those people helped really fuel our meetings, because they would not answer a question, and I would say, okay, you know who's out there waiting to come in and chain themselves to the fence. You better answer the question for us, because it's going to be we could do this the easy way, or we could do this the hard way. And they helped by giving us the hard way. And they also, the chain yourself to the fence people, brought out a lot of politicians, because they're interested, if there's going to be some cameras there, that they're going to be part of it. So that really helped get some attention on it. We changed everything. They spent a lot more money in the contracts, and then there were like 8 schools, because we put the information online, and there were like 8 or 9 schools who've called me to help them with their school construction projects. And I always say, no, I'm not going to be the person to do it. They want to hire me or whatever, and I say, no, I'm not going to be the person to be hired to do this. You have to do it yourselves. It has to come from you. So I give them the tips, the things that we learned about, the teachers union has a health inspector who can come in, and they're not considered trespassing, and they're part of the agreement. And so how to sort of leverage all the different parts to keep it moving forward like it's supposed to. But the civic engagement is often pushed away, softened out of the process, and we need to bring that back. That's my biggest.
That's right, which in fact, because, so the PTA introduces you to
Cafeteria culture, because
There we go.
also I would go into the cafeteria at lunch and volunteer and just had to pretend I existed from here up because of all the garbage that was going into one bin, and it just made me crazy to think about it all. So I started with the amazing science teacher who was also the sustainability coordinator, who was born on Earth Day. She is an amazing person, and together we worked to, she's a teacher, she's busy, she's doing things, so it helped to have somebody outside of the classroom helping her, but then she could help lead me to learn all of the mechanisms. And so we separated the waste in the cafeteria, and we started it one little bit at a time and took one step at a time, and she was amazing. Tina Rares, you're an amazing person. Then I started to learn about cafeteria culture, who was already working to get rid of the styrofoam trays in the schools. And so I brought Debbie Lee Cohen, who's another amazing woman, to the school, gave her a tour of everything we had done. And I was like, I want to work with you when my daughter finishes elementary school. And she said, well, I'm not sure if we have any money, but you're welcome to join us. So we did, and in my first year, we doubled the amount of money coming in, just because there was another set of eyes, not because I'm a great grant writer, but so we started growing, and now after that, styrofoam did get removed from schools. We started the first plastic-free lunch day in New York City schools. It was in one school, and now it's citywide once a month. And twice a year, schools across the country join us, and it's last time it was 4,000 schools who joined us. Yeah, and anybody can join an office or whatever, just, write to us. Yes, to do it in schools, because New York City public schools are the largest school system in the country, but the second largest institutional meal service after the U.S. military. So when you're changing a school procurement, right, because that's what you're doing. You're not changing laws. You don't have to go through all of that. You're changing procurement. And when you're changing procurement in the largest school system in the country, it feels like the movement feels like it's glacial. It just feels like, oh my gosh, we're never going to do this. But when you make the change, it's giant, and it's actually titanic to your cause, because you're making the move that you want to make, and you're making the splash.
And then it was Debbie Lee Cohen who said you should go to where?
Yes, Debbie Lee Cohen told me, well, we should both join our SWABs, the Solid Waste Advisory Board. She was on the Manhattan SWAB, and she said, you've got to join the Brooklyn SWAB. So I had been going to some meetings. I met Vondra at the Brooklyn SWAB.
That's where
I
we
met
met.
Debbie at the Brooklyn SWAB. I met Susan at the Brooklyn SWAB, who was very well ensconced in the SWAB at the time.
Yes.
And we were... that was an amazing group of...
And when you came on to the SWAB, because when I was on the SWAB 15 years ago, it was a really fuddy-duddy experience, could you say, with folks that had been in their spot for many years. And so then when Rhonda arrived, then there were like 3 or 4 younger women who came in, and so we voted onto the board with our next set of officers. And so we were able to get the old president and vice president, we'll get them out and put you all on. So, and then once you got on, it was like you were ready to go. I mean, you are just such, and this, of course, I will say Rhonda is about 10, 12 years ago. So, but I just still remember you at Borough Hall in one of these big events, and you were just the guiding light. You were just so wonderful, so welcoming to all of us coming out of the green movement, all of us gardeners and, environmentalists. And
I want to say one thing about 12 years ago. That's when I met Rhonda at middle school.
Mhm.
And Rhonda's rummage
Oh, great.
say a little
Yes.
bit more.
Repeat the question because people.
Well, it's
Oh.
just the
It's about the Rhonda's rummage.
Rhonda's
Oh,
rummage. Come on, Nubby.
This is another
I didn't know about it. Thank you.
she was doing back then, yeah.
I always like to say I didn't invent the rummage, but we
Thank
would
you.
we had a at my daughter's at Maybell's elementary school. I don't have to say my daughter; you all know Maybell. But she at her elementary school, we had this clothing drive, and then people were looking through them, and I was like, I would pay money for these. Like, this is crazy. So the next one that we started separating it, and it sort of evolved into what became a rummage, what many people know as a rummage. We do it, but everything was $1. And we had sometimes where a pair of skates, they brought in a pair of ice skates one year, and somebody bought them for $1. And then the next year, the child had outgrown them, and they brought them back, and they were $1 again. And then sometimes people would go get something, and then they would go home and try it on, and they'd say, it doesn't really fit. And we'd say, do you want your $1 back? And they'd say, just keep it. And it was just like a really nice community event. And then you'd think that the kids feel stigmatized because, they're wearing somebody else's clothes or they're used. But they would say, like, we started, my daughter was little, and some older student, like 5th grader or 4th grader, would say, where did you get that? When she was in the hallway, and she'd say, the rummage? And they would say, that used to be mine. And then suddenly they were like sisters, And then when she got older, she would say, there's the little girl who has my dress. And so it was a really nice, like, connection.
Yes.
And it raised $5,000 in the spring and $5,000 in the fall. $5,000. We would do it right before Halloween and then right around Earth Day. And so it was a really fun event. And then we made sure, this is the systemic change. We just made sure we got that put into the budget so that even if there were no greenies when I left the school, they would keep it, because you can't walk away from $10,000 in a year of really easy, like hardly any planning, barely any the volunteers are the people who want to get first dibs on the clothes, and so it's just like it's kind of a joy for everybody. And then we would add other things like a composting workshop, or we'd add like, this is what you can recycle, this is what you can't recycle. So we would do that, and it was a lot more popular in elementary school than it was in the middle school, but we tried. I have some great sheets from the middle school one.
And then, but more than that is the swab, bringing us back to your role at the swab and being such an inspiration in these early years to like really revamp the swab and to get a whole bunch of new people onto the swab. And it is now a wonderful grouping of people. And what you do now, talking about systemic change is we'll get to in a second. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about this whole looking outside of the world and having to, which I think is a part of the civic practice. The civic is really where, as you say, is looking at what has to get the systems change.
Yeah. I mean, the SWAB is, the Solid Waste Advisory Board is a part of the government. It's in, I guess, it's local law. I always forget which local law created it. Maybe Susan remembers. But anyway, where it is a group of volunteer citizens or, community members who are there to advise the borough president, city council members, and we've even extended it to state electeds about policy, about solid waste policy.
Right.
So the whole thing is, the last sanitation commissioner called us garbage groupies, but we're actually the opposite. We're trying to turn things into resources and not garbage, because there really is no way. And so we've done a lot of things, had public hearings, we've had a lot of public events. We have a very robust legislative committee where we have joined forces with the other SWABs, the Queens SWAB and the Manhattan SWAB and the Bronx SWAB, to write joint testimony because we feel like it's much stronger with all of our voices together. Yeah.
Right, exactly. This is a Project 25, but from the grassroots level. It's the SWAB. It's we are writing the legislation that we want to see in place. So there's been an enormous fight within the SWAB actually for composting. and for recycling and the clothing recycling, of course, that's grown out of it. But the other part, the swap, and it's an institutional thing because it's part of the government. It's a quasi-government thing. So it's so important to be inside the government, trying to negotiate.
Because listen, lobbyists have a seat at the table. They are elected on speed dial, and they want to listen. We certainly could do that, but we don't realize that we could do that. And so to having these forums, these fora where you can actually interact with them and let them know actually what they're telling you is partially true, or we want to give you the full truth, or here's another part of the people from the point of view of the people who suffer the consequences of this policy or whatever, to really talk about that.
And also, even on the swap, you have to be a member of the swap, you have to declare your interests. So I have to declare that I have a small business. And then there are other people on the swap who are industries. So there are industries consultants. So it's not like we're all, this is a greenie group.
Right.
If there are other, what can I say, infiltrators, business.
I mean, that certainly makes us all at the top of our game, right? There's no relaxing. It's about really understanding it and keeping your head in the game to understand, okay, you don't want to get lulled into something. You really want to understand every single part of proposed legislation or any kind of policy thing that comes up. And it reminds me of what I talk about in class. I remember we had we had some fifth graders, and they at a school, and I realized that they weren't quite sure about how government worked and how the whole civic process worked. And I said, so do you know who's the boss of the mayor? And they were like, the president? And we're like, no. And they said, I said, well, okay, who pays the mayor? And they said, well, the president? And then they said, well, I said, well, think about it a little bit. And they said, the government? And they say, well, and I say, well, who is the government? How do they get their money? And they say, the president? and then I say, when you go to the bodega and you buy a candy bar and a pack of gum and some water, do you just pay for that? And they say, oh, tax, do we pay the mayor? And I say, yes. I say, so who's the boss of the mayor? And they say, us? And I say, yes. And so your teacher's kind of the boss of you, and when you get a problem wrong on your test, does your teacher just say wrong and then push it out? No, she or he goes over the thing with you and tries to make you understand how to get it right. Yeah, how to fix it. So that's the same thing we have to do with the mayor. It's our job. He doesn't necessarily know that something isn't working. And so you have to tell them that it's not working. And so that's what we do with our students. We teach them about environmental education, but we teach them that good data drives policy, and it's good data and their stories.
And that's where Cafeteria Culture, which is actually your job. You do this full time, aren't you?
Yeah,
lucky?
She got money and paid me, and now I'm doing that job.
So it's wonderful. And we didn't actually have an opportunity to look at these wonderful films from Cafeteria Culture, because you have, as one of your staff members, somebody who's a...
Yes. Our now, because Debbie Lee Cohen, who founded Cafeteria Culture, passed away, and she cultivated all of us to continue, and we're continuing in her name and beyond, and feel her guidance regularly. But her partner at the time was Atsuko Quirk, who was the media director. Atsuko is now also the media director and the executive director, and I'm the program and policy director. So we have a YouTube channel with more than 34 million views on it, I think. Yeah, it's kind of amazing. And we have a movie called Microplastic Madness, which is about plastic, because we got rid of styrofoam, and after that we started the first plastic-free lunch day, and as I said, it has...
And this marvelous connection with with children in Japan.
Yes, there was a whole exchange program between a school on the Lower East Side. Our students live primarily in public housing. There's one school, this school, which has 51% of the students living in shelters or temporary housing. So they're amazing and go out and do bag giveaways. They've testified before city council hearings to help bring, legislation into effect. And then also we did an exchange with 2 schools in Japan in a very rural island in the southernmost island called Iriomote, which is south of Okinawa. And they just had the most fun. They Zoomed once where our kids stayed late and their kids came early for school, and they had a little Zoom where they did little questions, what do you like? And our kids asked them about anime, and they had pizza, and our kids had sushi, and it was really, really fun.
So this whole beautiful thing about cafeteria culture, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Cafeteria culture inside the schools. And then we come out of that, and then just would take a moment to think about and to go over to Sure We Can.
Right.
And your friendship with, and my friendship with, actually, Anna Dodoko. And if you reminded me, actually, that how you met.
So we were having, this is before the days of Zoom, and we were having an organics committee meeting with the SWAB at Vondra's house. And there I was at an organics committee meeting, and Ana Martinez de Luco was there, who is the street nun who founded Sure We Can. She's an amazing woman. She's moved on to found another organization, and now it's running without her because she really left us in great hands. But she saw me. We connected at Vondra's house, and I saw her look at me, and I thought, why did she look at me like that? And then later she asked me to join the board of Sure We Can. So, and I felt so proud. Sure We Can is the only nonprofit bottle and can redemption center in New York City. And it was founded by Anna and another canner. And it's about people who are collecting bottles and cans for a living, and otherwise everyone's welcome, but to really give them a dignified, they're entrepreneurs who are cleaning our streets at no cost to taxpayers, and so it's a really, really amazing organization, and and the board is made up of half canners and half non-canners. So we cannot get too many non-canners on the board. Every time that happens, we say, we need to recruit some more canners. So it's really, really amazing. And the incredible women on that board who are there now leading us to connect with international workers organization, international recyclers, international waste pickers, which in the global south, that's how the Department of Sanitation works. In the global south, yeah.
Yes. And just if you were to look at a picture of coming out of Brazil, you'd see a pile of, or even Senegal, you'd see a pile of trash, and people were just walking all over it, picking out things. So, but the other interesting thing about the Sure We Can and taking us into that civic space is actually the importance of the deposit. So we're all paying that 5-cent deposit, which we somewhat can carry, and for the can, dropping it in. But the biggest hurdle on this is that the companies that have to come back and collect, and then they pay the redemption centers. Right. Tell us a bit more about that. Well, so it's messy.
Yeah. So there's a bill that's being proposed that has been trying to get passed for the last 3 years. If anybody wants to call their representative and tell them to pass the bigger, better bottle bill, because they haven't gotten a raise since 2009. So that 5-cent deposit has been there. And there are redemption centers all over the state that aren't nonprofit. So they can't operate with grant programs and other programs. They have to use the handling fee, which is part of this, which the distributor pays. So you see distributor trucks, beverage trucks coming all around the city, and those are different distributors, and they all have, each distributor has different brands that they distribute. And so if the fee is, they want to raise the fee to 10 cents, they want to raise it to almost all bottles instead of, there are lots of weird exemptions that happen because when the bottle bill happened, they didn't have Snapple maybe, or whatever, so they're not including all of these things in all of these bottles into it. So they want to expand it to more bottles, and they want to they want to increase the handling fee. And the thing about the thing about these bottle laws is that it is the most successful recycling program that there is. The recovery percentages are astronomical, more than 70% recovery rate on bottles and cans that have a deposit on them. So, and of course, and they would probably be even more of a recovery rate if people like us, if there were redemption centers more readily available, but also if people like us felt like, oh, we need to do it. Now, we don't want to compete with the canners, but there are people who put out cans at outside of their brownstone or wherever, a bag of cans for canners who come by. Canners are all kinds of people. There are people who like going through and looking through for treasure, and there are people who go to bars or restaurants and say, I'll take your cans and bottles off your hands.
But the big thing is getting the distributors to in fact pay.
No, right.
So we can. The treachery. Excuse me. Yeah. But just so that's one. We want to get the law passed to raise the deposit from 5 cents to 10 cents. That will help. But more important is actually the making it these distributors pay up
and pick up, and
and pick up. Oh,
sure
you're right.
And right. Sure We Can has this amazing. Well, we had an issue where our landlord was selling the property, and we had to try to raise the money, and eventually we did get a grant from the state to purchase the property.
Great.
Which is really wonderful. But there's all these containers all over, and there's bags of sorted,
water bottles,
cans, plastic bottles, and it's all, it's just about the lag and getting the distributors to come pick up. So yes, we do need that too.
That's right. That was the other thing. So that they just, at any rate, now this comes back to our final point, which is practice.
Oh.
And again, I want us to just look at this. So we've got our activism, we've got our ethicals coming from our core to this is what I really want. We're looking at it not just about ourselves, but how we're going to make system changes. But the final thing about this is practice. And what I wanted us to all to just have a little time to sit with how we practice what we preach, as it were. This is the tricky part, isn't it? Because we all, we're all too impatient, maybe, so just having the sense of the long game, and also the relationship between who we are and how we are. Say a little bit more about that.
Well, I think that's so important to think about. I hear a lot right now, people saying, joy is the most important act of resistance that we have, and so I feel like same thing with activism, that yes, you can step into quicksand and realize, oh my gosh, this is another thing, a campaign I have to get involved in. But you can also remember that you have the luxury to do it. You have and whatever it is that your talents are, that your skills are, it's just about contributing those skills to the cause, as it were. And I feel like that is just doing it with joy as much as possible, because that's all we've got.
Yes.
You know, it has to bring joy.
Yes,
Yeah.
the love of it, for the
Yeah.
love of it. Yes, that's very hard to do, and there's, you know, all over our social media and what people are encouraging us to do. People really want us to come out and get involved.
Mm-hmm.
But getting involved is not just getting involved. It means, you know, learning how to build friendships.
Mm-hmm.
It really does mean learning how to love, to share, to care, and all sorts of different ways. And, you know, I know that sometimes I can say, truthfully, that I come up short many times, you know.
I can't imagine.
Oh, please. You know, I can be known for being a bossy flossy, you know, but in our world, we really do have to have a little space for people to say, please do this and do it now, without us all having a temper tantrum. Oh, don't you talk to me like that. So I do think that, so let's talk, just so we have another minute or so, and then we'll open it up for comments and everybody can share. Go ahead.
Well, I also feel like I learn from people as I go, and definitely from the amazing women. And when I was doing the work in the PTA, and there was this assistant principal at my daughter's elementary school, Dawn Pender, and she would say, "Yeah, go ahead. You've got the expertise here. Just go ahead." And I realized from watching her, not just in that instance, but over and over again, that leadership for her wasn't a power trip. It was just like another job. It was like, okay, somebody needs to coordinate this. Let me just tie up the loose ends. And that's kind of what I feel like a pollinator can be good for too. Like, you understand who's good at what, and you call people in. You're not, again, with the joy, you're not calling people out. You're calling people in for what they can bring to the project and to the friendship. That's what I love about Sure We Can. There's a whole community area where canners can come in and bring their bottles and cans and sort them themselves. And if they sort it according to distributor, then they get an extra bit of money for each piece. And that opportunity, that place of community space, makes for people to say, oh, I just have two for this distributor. Does anybody need these two? And there's a trading that happens, and there's talking, there's social happening, and all of that stuff makes for community. And I feel like it's a model, really, for grassroots community.
And it's actually an entirely different experience. I'm sorry we weren't able to see the videos, but we will give you all, you know, links to Sure We Can, so you can go and see them, because they're lovely. And you compare that, actually, experience of this, and it's huge. I mean, the Sure We Can premises is the size of this corner lot, actually. And this wonderful experience of people going back and helping out. And if you go to the redemption center outside the local, you know, supermarket, where there is none of that, it's like, excuse me, I've got my book, excuse me. And we just, that's how much effort we have to, you know what I'm saying? That's the practice that we have to, like, really just throw so much of our activism
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
That this is what part of activism is all about doing, is looking at the practice side.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, really. I mean, also, I want to say that everybody is coming to the table at their own place, from their own point of view and their own level and everything. When we talk with kids about Plastic-Free Lunch Day, and we do all of these waste audits, we've had our 10,000 hours in the cafeteria, probably 8,000 are waste audits. And we look and we've seen the trash from home lunch and we've seen the trash from school lunch, which is getting better and better and better in terms of less plastic, in terms of the home lunch plastic is, there are lots of chip bags and there are lots of all kinds of, lot of junk food, etc. But our job as change makers in a school is not to peer shame. It's not to point fingers at kids. There are kids who bring their home lunch, their parents walk them to school, and they have to go on off to work, and they say, here, go into the bodega and buy whatever you want. And the kid gets what they want, and that's their connection to their parent throughout the day. Are we going to go and poo-poo that? No. Do we say, try school lunch to go plastic free? And so it's about participating, it's about what is yes, and it's not about bringing out the no so much and shaming one another, because everybody has their own place that they're coming from.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's
Yeah.
a lovely. So let's open it up. Give Rhonda a round of applause. Thank you so much. Just a second, love. Just a little, we're going to go on and we'll get to the evidence.